It's Monday, December 6th, 2021, and this is episode 51 of the iPhoneography podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Dave Podner. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Doing good, Greg. How you doing tonight?
Not too bad. I see you've got your old setup back. You're on your
Mm-hmm.
iMac, and you've got your
Yay.
furry little companion in the background there.
Yep, world famous Leo back there just taking his bath right now. Doesn't even care he's on camera.
Yep. Alrighty. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple different things. Today I was kind of going through the whole World Wide Web looking for something to talk about. And I discovered a story from about a year ago, or an article, and it's on redsharknews.com. And it's about mobile photography, and it's now just photography. And I guess in a lot of circles that could be, how they would prefer to put it. I think there's still a lot of people in the mobile world who still want to differentiate it from traditional photography, and that's okay too, of course. But it's I think it's come far enough that it certainly is. Well, I mean, it's always been, to me, it's always been photography. I mean, it's computational, but technically DSLR stuff is computational as well. And I wrote a blog post about bridging the gap between computational photography and traditional photography. And in that blog post, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes, in that blog post, my friend Don Komarechka on his podcast, Photo Geek Weekly, I think it's called. Well, he's since moved to Bulgaria, so I don't know if he's going to continue with that or not. I hope he does. But anyway, he was talking to someone on his show, and he pointed out that the DSLR, and in the particular case he was talking about, it was a Canon. He told him to do some kind of test where if you did the test, it was basically shoot against a white wall, set the aperture at something. I don't know if it was like mid-range or wide open or what it was. I think it was wide open. And then take the shot and then just unlock the lens and shift it enough that it would disconnect the contacts between the lens and the camera, and it would shoot a different type of picture. Again, I don't remember all the details, so go to my website. I believe it's on. I have two different ones I put stuff like that on. Anyway, links in the show notes, and read up on that. And I put, with Don's permission, I put verbatim his conversation about that particular thing, and you'll understand it much better than I can explain it to you now. But anyway, so it's computational. That's a given. We all know that. We all know that when you take a single shot with your iPhone, and I'm sure the Android phones probably work the same way, it's taking multiple photos, blending them all together, doing all this magic stuff, coming up with a photograph. It's photography because it has a sensor, it has a lens, it has the light comes through the lens, through the aperture, onto the sensor, creates a photograph. It does some processing, and you come up with a photo just like you would with the finest of digital cameras. It works the same way, fundamentally. Now, phones have some limited capabilities. We all know that. We all know we can't do wildlife photography with it. We all know we can't shoot a very high detailed photo that's going to be big enough to make a wallpaper out of it on your wall. We know that. But, these things are, I like to look at it now as a camera that can make phone calls. And these things, they're like little supercomputers that you can carry around in your pocket. So that was kind of the gist of what this thing was talking about. This story on redsharknews.com. And so those are my thoughts just on, why I think mobile photography is indeed photography. I think I'll probably always call it iPhoneography, just because ever since the iPhone came out with a decent camera, and I think it started with the iPhone 4, but it's arguable that iPhoneography really started before that when they became mainstream, of course. But Glenn Evans coined the phrase iPhoneography, and I think you want to find something on the internet to do with iPhone photography, you type in iPhoneography and you're probably going to find it. But so those are my thoughts on the whole thing. Dave, what do you think? You must have some thoughts on, is it photography? Should there be that line drawn? What do you think?
Well, it is photography in my mind. Now, just like going back, now, if you want to go back, kids ask your parents or grandparents, back to when Polaroids really got popular, or non-35 millimeter film cameras got popular. There was always groups of people who segmented themselves, who said, I shoot with this type of camera. Part of it is it's good to know the limitations of the tools you have. I'm thinking back in the day, when I was in Scouts in the mid 80s, and I went to summer camp, and my gram gave me her 110 camera so I could take photos at camp. Mm-hmm. Now, a 110 camera, look it up for for those who don't know, it was a small camera. It was a pocketable camera. It was film, but it used a 110 cartridge, where literally, and unfortunately, in terms of, I'm trying to remember exactly, in terms of the width of it, because you held it kind of flat with the height, there wasn't much height to it, maybe an inch of height. And it really wasn't much.
That's how I started my photography. It's one of those.
And it really wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't really much wider than the iPhones we have now are long. Mm-hmm. And from front to back, it was maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches. So, like I said, it was a nice, small, pocketable size. But it wasn't the highest quality glass. It wasn't obviously replaceable lens. If you had I think the upscale model or the up model, you had a optical zoom because you could slide a lens across between the two different sizes. But of course, you wouldn't know necessarily. If you're using a 110, you probably are not familiar enough with 35 millimeter film cameras to know what the equivalent lenses are. And, but I could see someone saying, hey, I want to talk to someone who also uses this, because that way we can talk about techniques to get around what the camera, limitations are, where that's why there's Sony groups. That's why there's Canon groups, Nikon groups, Fujifilm groups, like Mark Sadowski, along with us formerly, and head Tiny Shutter himself with his Fujifilm podcast, where he talks to people who predominantly use the Fujifilm system for the DSLRs. And when I listened to that podcast, a lot of people use the JPEG simulations and they don't shoot in RAW.
Yeah. That's something I'm hearing a little more of.
Because the JPEG simulations are so good built in, and you can say, I want to use this, and you can do some tweaking, it sounds like, where you can say, this is the look I want. That way you're focusing on the composition, the shot, and they're replaceable lenses, what lens you want to use, the actual setup of the photo itself, versus, oh, now I have to do all this other stuff and set this here and set this here. You can only focus on so many things at one time. But photography's always been, like I said, it's always been segmented. Even though there's photography, if you have someone with a ultra zoom,
like a 600 millimeter lens
lens,
that's
yeah,
going to get a good
exactly.
shot of the moon and stuff.
Exactly. And then download it and probably have to throw it in Photoshop because they still, you still do that. You make whatever tweaks you have to or whatever adjustments. That's photography, just like someone who has a disposable camera or, just a little pocketable camera that they bought just because they want to take photos, but they don't want anything that if it gets busted, it's not like, it's not as valuable of a thing because they just want to take the image. So, you have the two sides of photography, but they're all photography. I know everyone likes to, like I said, iPhone photography versus Android photography versus non-smartphone photography versus full frame versus this or different. Everyone segments because you like to say, hey, here's a photo I did, or you can see a photo that someone else did with similar equipment to what you have. That way you can say, hey, we have similar equipment. I see you have that. How did you do that with the equipment you have? Or, where did you go from so I can learn from you? Or you still have the whole calling it gang mentality is overdrawn, but you still have the whole my side, your side, my side, your side.
Yeah, us and them.
Exactly.
but that's what hashtagging really does too. Is that
right?
It allows you to find people who use the same gear that you use.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, shot on iPhone. It's probably one of the most used hashtags ever. And I mean, I'm bad for using them. I use shot on iPhone, iPhone 12 Pro Max, halide or whatever, shot with halide, that kind of thing. Some of them are used so I could get picked up by, say, the folks at halide. They want us to tag it with our photos with their hashtag.
Right.
But it's not that I want people to know that I'm using the iPhone to do my photography. It's in my bio. I'm an iPhoneographer. I probably should take it out of there, but for me personally, my sole reason for using the shot on iPhone tag is with the hopes of one day Apple highlighting one of my pictures. If they do that, I'm satisfied with what I've done. But and that's what they look for. They look for that hashtag. But you're right. I mean, there's always been that segmentation going on. The whole us and them thing, and it even boils over to iPhone versus Android.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes it's a sad thing because I've always been of the mind that there shouldn't be any segmentation like that. It should always be, we're all photographers. Yeah, and if we shoot with phones, we're all mobile photographers, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What else do you think? I think you put a couple of things in our notes here about.
Well, also, honestly, when you get in, like I say, you think segmentation from, let's say, two sides. You have those who are non-pros using the device they have, which for the majority of people is your phone. And then you have the pros or high-end pros who have, like I said, like one person, Dave DeSillo, who's a local guy, who's a photographer, he does it on the side. Wouldn't believe it. Everyone's shocked when he put out, it's like, oh yeah, my day job is this. I do the photography. It's like, I see you take photos at 3 a.m. When do you sleep and do a regular job? But like you said, he'll go behind, he'll show it's like, yeah, here's the setup, here's the tripod, here's the camera I use, here's the 600 millimeter lens I use to get the photo shot of the moon, and here's how I do this. But honestly, for most people, and this is not just true of iPhones, this is true of most mid-level and higher smartphones. If you have a phone that was purchased in the last 3 years, unless you are printing out, and I don't mean it, unless you have a nice printer at home, going to a printer and having a big size, poster size printed out. If you're looking at it on your screen, which if it's through Instagram, Facebook, mostly anything else, it's going to degrade it anyway. Or if you're sharing it just on your phone, it's a 6-inch size here. Most people don't have the discriminating eye. I kind of equate it to like music. You do have people who go out, invest in the speakers, the extra expensive $400, $500 headsets with the noise cancellation, which are the high impedance, so you can hear all the little intricate. They download the lossless, so they can hear all the beautiful little, and that's great for you. Most people, especially when they get to be a little older, your ears are downgraded. Just living life.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, living life, your ears are down. Living life, your ears get downgraded. It's a fact of life. Plus, and you get people who are like, I listen on my Apple iPods, not the AirPods. Let's say the wired ones. I hate to say the cheap wired ones.
Oh, but they sound so good.
They sound good. They sound like the ones like I use when I listen to them on these $20 little earbuds. Okay. Yeah. Or if and here we go. I just happen to have in my pocket. They weren't there on purpose. Or if I'm running, I listen to stuff on my running headset here. That way, if their ones could fall out if I'm running here. I got it over my neck like this. But these are, again, $20, $19. I'm not going to get the highest quality sound off of those, especially Bluetooth. You're going to lose quality.
Oh, yeah.
Most people don't care. Most people don't care. Same thing with the photos. Most people don't have the eye or, the intricate vision or the display to see they're looking for a photo to hit them with either an emotion or an event or something that's going on. So most people, and I would say most people don't care, and most people have never have personal experience with a high-end camera system. I mean, you see the shots on TV that are obviously the high-end still photos for different events that's happening, or, on websites, or if you happen on a magazine or a book, you can tell that's a high-end expensive thing. Most people, I'm willing to say, you could look at you can go to an average area and you will find maybe one person out of 100, maybe, who has actually shot with a full DSLR. So most people don't have this is what a $5,000 camera system, considering the camera and the lens combined, let's say, this is a, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, whatever $1,000 camera system. This is a phone, but I have dealt with, but most people haven't dealt with both. And I actually did a quick lookup. In the last year, Apple has sold this is the last 12 months ending at the last quarter. So of course, fourth quarter calendar year is always Apple's biggest. You have the holiday, you have the full period for the release of the phones, where the third quarter only has normally a week's worth of shipments. The fourth one normally is a massive one. But in the last, let's say, 4 quarters, they sold 230 million iPhones worldwide.
Wow.
And unlike everyone else, obviously Apple considers it sold if it's sold to a retail store to be held. But the majority of sales are not to a retail store to be held and people pick up whenever. It's direct. It's I'm ordering
through the
it
carrier
today
or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And there's not normally a stock. Like I ordered it through the Apple website, sort of through the carrier, but mostly through the Apple website. But there was not a stock in a store somewhere in the US that I would go up to and just purchase off. I actually tracked it from China. Both our phones were coming from China. You can actually see where it was flying. So Apple only considers a phone sold when it's sold. So some care, and this is just tradition. This wasn't like, oh, this is the horrible Android way of doing it versus the iPhone. It's, oh, we sold AT&T 100 million phones. How many were sold to end customers? We don't care as a manufacturer because we sold them. Whatever AT&T does with that inventory doesn't matter to us, which if you're a manufacturer, it makes sense. You really don't care. But for Apple, generally, if they say they sold 230 million phones, which you have to extrapolate because they don't say volume anymore, you have to based on average price and revenue they had. But let's say 230, those are actually phones in people's hands in the last 12 months. And probably we're going to get close.
Is that 230 million phones or 230 million dollars worth of sales?
No, phones.
Holy.
Oh yeah, no. If you look at the revenue, they are. I would have to look it up because quarterly earnings and everything, but no, their quarterly revenue from iPhone is in the billions of dollars.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, you figure that's now admittedly worldwide and their market share, but that's a lot of phones. So
that is.
There's no way.
You figure how many of those are going to be used for photography?
I would say
90% of them.
Yeah. I mean, even if you want to consider it truly casual, we have a family get together a couple nights last night. Time, and how things are related. It's all weird in the last couple of years. Last night, a friend of ours, her child, who's 12, had a gig at a local concert. I don't want to say concert, but it was like a bar she had a gig for. And we were able to go there. It was kind of close. And I was able to take a photo and do a couple of videos of her playing guitar on stage. So, that's where it's useful because, it was pretty much the only people she knew who saw her live were her parents and us. So, like her friends probably wouldn't be able to see it, other family members, but we were able to take photos and a little video. There we go. There's Lily. So, and that was now I'll do the before anyone has a chance to say anything. Yes, her skin is over smoothed.
Well, it's obviously used night mode, right?
I'm trying. You know what? While I'm looking that up, let me check real quick. I don't know if it was definitely a zoom. So I did let me bring it up here. No, that was not like night mode.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was a live photo. It was telephoto. So, and it was a little bit of digital zoom. 3x was still a little too far away. I think that was maybe 4.7.
Yeah.
It was 4 to close to 5x. So it was some digital, and there was, like I said, it did some smooth, but that was also lighting was being changed. It was, it was stage lighting. So it changed colors like you would see at a concert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But given we were that far away, and that still turned out pretty damn amazing.
Yeah.
Like I said, yes, people can nitpick, and when you see a camera review from when a new phone comes out, they would, if you're nitpicking, you would say, yes, you can see there's, over smoothing of the skin, the light's pretty good. There's some blah, 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 whatever. I hate to say it that way, but those are people who are, and I want people to be nitpicky when you're reviewing, but it turned out good enough that, especially if you're showing it on a phone, most people look at photos on a phone. Mm-hmm. Very few people print out anymore. It's shared to Facebook so family can see it, or shared to Instagram.
Yeah.
Most people do not look at Facebook and Instagram on the web. They look at it on their phones. You're talking a 6-inch device to 7-inch if you got a big one. So, you're not going to see all those minor details that someone who's really going to look at it like real close. But again, it's a fun way to share. It's a fun way to share, to look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that, to me, like I said, is that real photography? In my mind, yes. If you're using something to capture a still visual image, you're doing photography. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's always ways to use the tools you have, learn new tools, maybe learn some software, use something different to improve either your composition, your lighting, your staging, how you can post edit. There's always a way to improve or change or different styles that people are comfortable with. I'm not saying all photography is equal, but everything is photography.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No,
it
I
always
agree
gets to me.
100%.
Yeah. And it just gets to me when people tend to put in levels. Well, this is real photography, or this is real. You're doing only this. I'm like, you realize if you took like a bar chart, trying to get my hands lined up here, majority of people, we're talking 90+%, 95%, are never going to see the high end equipment. And I would say, if you look at people, I would say 95 plus, I'm going to say under 5%, and just pulling numbers out of dark areas, have never used Photoshop. They've
That's right.
heard of Photoshop. They've heard of Photoshop because they've heard of photos being shopped, edited, or like that magazine cover saying, "Oh, that's obviously a Photoshop cover," because you can see, they've had wrinkles removed or their skin lightened, or minor tweaks to, so let's say celebrities' official photo shoots. They've heard of Photoshop. They understand, but they would have no idea how to do it.
Yeah,
and I would even say majority of people don't even do. And from in the last couple of years, editing in the base Photos app you have a lot more detail and a lot more possibility than you did just 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Where 3 or 4 years ago, you had nothing.
I've been using the Photos app to do my editing more than anything in the last probably 6 to 8 months, just because it's that good.
Yeah. You get a lot more details. I said, I like Polar. I know some people like the Lightroom mobile. I try that occasionally too. But at least do like a little bit of edit. But, I would say a majority of people don't even do edits. They take the photo and they post it and they share their experience with the world.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know, it gets me a little bit when people try to make different. Again, I'm not saying there's not different skill levels there, and to say, because I hear people say this to photographers, like professional photographers, if I had your equipment, I could take that. No. If you had their equipment, if you had their editing skills, if you had their years of experience, all the trial and error they went through for the last 30 plus, probably 40 plus years of their life, even I'm talking people who aren't young, people in their 30s with 20 years of experience with photos and editing and everything else since they started young. Yeah, if you had all that experience and you had their equipment and you had their skill in editing and everything else, yeah, you can make good photos, but you just can't say, give me this $4,000 camera and I'm going to take a picture and it'll turn out great. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Doesn't that work that way on a DSLR? Doesn't work that way on an iPhone or a mobile device. And so the people say there's, like I said, there's not, it's not that there's not different skill levels, but like you said, we're just all photographers trying to capture what's out there in the world and share it with people.
Yeah, that's right. It's like Mark Sadowski says, you can't polish a turd. So if you take a bad picture, it doesn't matter what kind of camera you've got. If it's a bad picture, it's a bad picture. But no, I think it sounds like we're on the same boat. Photography is photography, no matter what kind of camera you use. I mean, you can go back to the film days where you had 110 film, like you were talking about, and then compare that to 35 millimeter film. Well, you're still taking a picture. You're still doing photography. It's still photography. There's that, little argument that could be made about photographers, but we won't get into that. But I mean, because you could say that anybody that takes a photograph is a photographer, or you could say that there has to be some level of experience and blah blah blah. But as far as photography goes, and what this article was talking about, I think it's very clear, at least to you and I, that photography is photography, no matter how you do it, no matter what the camera is. So, excuse me. So I think, I think that was a pretty good discussion on that. Oh, yeah. And I had a pretty good feeling that we were going to be on the same page with it. And it's becoming more and more, the belief that mobile photography is indeed photography because it has photography in the title. So, so speaking of photography, you've been trying out this even longer a little bit. And so let's talk about that for a bit. How's your experience been with that? And then I'll touch on my experience with it as well, because I've been using it too.
Well, I've been trying. Now, let me give the failures, if you will, and not necessarily failure of the app, but failure of circumstance. I tried to do some light trail photos, star trail, not light trail, star trail photos, and went out. It looked, of course, as I said before in earlier episodes, I do have a good amount of light pollution, so I wasn't expecting amazing, but a little bit. I did one where I got, the first time I did it, and I'll let you, my setup is generally in my backyard. I'll put one of our called a metal wicker chair. It's like a metal chair. It's one of those metal chairs with like a grate back and bottom. And I'll put that out in the yard, and I'll put the phone upside down on it and let it do its thing. That way it's stable. It's going straight up in the air, and I'm walking away from it, and it's away from the house. And first time I did it, I had it set up, and I was saying, I'm going to do really experimental, for me, 15-minute exposure. So I went up there, put the 15-minute exposure. It was cold, so I'm outside because I don't want to just leave it out. I don't want to leave my phone just out there by itself, even though it's in a fenced part of our yard. I still don't want to leave it out there. We still have occasional wildlife, and I don't want any wildlife coming up and
yeah.
So I'm outside bundled up and like, okay, how much time? Like, I got a few more minutes. Okay, got a few more minutes. Okay. Freezing my butt off here. Okay. 15 minutes. I go over, and I noticed the seat cushion fell on top of the phone, and it was blocking the lens. It's like,
oh no.
Okay. So I said, you know what? 5 minutes. I'm not doing 15 again, because at that time it was like 11:30 at night. I'm like, 5 minutes. I'm giving myself 5 minutes. So did the 5 minutes, and I got the beginning of light trails. And it was like, okay, that looks pretty nice. Nothing big, but it was good enough that then I tried it a couple nights ago. Say, okay, I do see some stars out. It's dark, but I do see stars out. So set it up, 15 minutes again, upside down, waiting outside. And when I did it, like, oh, there's a lot of, where are the stars at? It was kind of like a white haze. I'm looking up, I'm like, I don't obviously see any clouds. I see a couple stars out, but we're not in an area where if it's, if there's a light, if there's some thin light clouds, you may not see it because of the light pollution. So I just did a 30-second exposure with the regular camera, did that, pulled up, like, oh yeah, there are actually a lot of 30 seconds. Oh yeah, there are a lot of clouds up there. So that's why the even longer didn't work, because 15 minutes, you average that out, you're going to get just light clouds without any other information, unfortunately. So that wasn't the huge success, but I did try it. The best success I had was taking some cloud photos using a MacGyver-ish tripod out of the room here, out of the office. I do have a window just right there. So I opened the window, I opened the screen, I put the phone in, and I put the screen down on top of the phone like that, so it would stabilize it. So it was kind of like a tripod, and did the exposure. And I only did a few seconds here. and just let it go. And the sun was kind of behind me, so I didn't have to worry about a bright sun. And if you go to the top one, Greg, there we go. So I got some, at least for me, I really like the way the clouds turned out there.
Yeah, it's a nice smooth.
Yeah. And I'm going to, so we could see here. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Where are we at? Okay, there we go. Okay. I'm actually bringing up, just so I can get the details here, how long of a shot that was. Because the nice thing about the Even Longer app, it will save information on the photo itself in terms of how many frames and how long. So, and this is both in the Photos app for the Mac and for the phone. So that one was a 40-second exposure and 800 frames that were averaged out.
Yeah, because that's how it does this. It uses frame averaging. Yeah.
So, and the trees are actually pretty. Now, it wasn't cloud. It was a little windy. Obviously, the clouds moving there, but it wasn't overly windy. And I thought I did a pretty good job with getting. And there, I didn't do other than cropping. The street out front, you can see the tops of the houses down below. I cropped them out, but other than that, I don't think I did very little editing on this. So it turned out really good. Of course, I think we're talking sun behind me, partly cloudy day. So the sun was actually lighting what I was doing on it, so I wasn't dealing with any harsh shadows. And I really like the way this turned out, and it has a really nice look to it too, with the with the clouds kind of streaking there.
Yeah, I think Even Longer does a really good job of that. In fact, the best I've seen out of a long exposure type of thing like this. So yeah, it's really nice and smooth.
Yeah, and it did a much better job than. And not anything against either, because I took a similar shot with both Spectre and the long exposure for the building camera.
Yeah,
they're great for other situations. Spectre's great for handheld, and you want to do up to 9 seconds.
Yes,
but for something longer, like a 40-second exposure here, it's real. Like I said, even the way it works with the taking in this case, 800 shots and averaging pixel by pixel, so there's no noise. If you know, I know, and in my mind, I'm sort of, and I'm probably doing this wrong, sort of equating it to something like finite element analysis, where you kind of break the real world down to a grid, and where each node on the grid is related to other things next to it, and then doing that over time and doing computation on each node. In this case, a pixel would be a node, and trying to look at, okay, well, this is this color and this bright, blah, blah, here. Another second later, it's this, and this is this, and this was here, and here's how its neighbors are acting. And the fact it does that pretty quick, it's not a matter of upload it to Photoshop and then let it process for 5 minutes and it'll kick out an answer. This is take a photo, like I said, 40 seconds. After 40 seconds is done, then it takes only a second or two, and then boom, photo. Yeah. So it just turned out really well, I think.
Yeah. So then you had a bit of a challenging time with it. I think we'll show this one first.
Yeah, that's the unedited. So this is a little later in the day. This is around 4:00 or so, looking west, and knowing time of year. Since we're in December, we were around an hour away from sunset. The sun was kind of low in the sky and off to the left. So you can see, like I said, it does a good job with getting that motion in the clouds again. And in the river in front of us. However,
it really smoothens it out.
But the couple and this is kind of limitations of everything. If you look at the tall grasses that are closest to us, they're blurry. because it
moving,
was
right?
windy. Well, it was very windy too. So it'd be for anything, it would be hard to get those in focus just because it was kind of moving back and forth to go to quick.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For this one again, even longer, you do need a tripod or other way. This is not a handheld camera.
No, that's right.
So I actually propped this on rocks. There's like kind of big boulders they had set up, partially just for that, kind of acting like barrier between the park and the river, so no one would kind of, fall in the river type thing. So, but it was a kind of it was a natural bouldering. It wasn't like a smooth square rock. So I used the crevice there to kind of prop the phone up because I didn't have a tripod that would work, and put it on delay. So 3-second delay. So you hit the button and it gives it 3 seconds for everything to calm down. So you don't have the shake from hitting the phone, and then let this go. But like I said, the one limitation is the hills. They weren't this dark.
Yeah.
But because you had a sun that was barely covered with clouds just to my left, it made that really, you can see there's houses over there, but you really can't see other than the kind of the white trim, which sticks out a little bit. It's really hard to see anything else. So if you go down an image,
down,
up.
is that
I'm sorry, up. I'm sorry, up.
Yeah.
Up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So this was me trying to boost the shadows. Now, even longer, if you do the pro level, you do get raw. I didn't do that. I'm just using JPEG here. So I don't know if raw, how much more I could do. Like I said, it was challenging. Here, I boosted the shadows, boosted the colors a bit. You can kind of see on the left of the of the sky here, it is blown out. You can see some color bleed coming through there. But it kind of, but at least here, like you can see the river a little bit. It's not gray, like it was in the earlier shot. It has a little bit of blue because the river's, it's not this deep, beautiful blue, but it's bluish. And you can see at least see the houses across the way now.
And with the sky reflecting off the water too, right?
Right.
But I mean, you did a really good job of getting the shadow detail out of that main area. And look, I'm going to go back to the first one. You could hardly see any houses in there.
Right.
And then you go to the one that you've edited and you've brought them right out. I mean, that's incredible how you could pull the detail back out of the shadows. And I think that's with the iPhone in general, you can achieve that. But with a long exposure like this, it just makes it so much better.
Yeah, and get some. Well, let me get some details on this one real quick here, because that one was a 20-second exposure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So 378 frames.
Well, that's a fair bit of cloud movement for that length of time too.
It was, like I said, it was windy. The winds were kicking up at that time. The winds were really kicking up at that time. Yeah. So lots of movement down below.
And then this last one, it's another attempt, and it looks like it was a much longer exposure.
Let me actually check that. I believe so, but I want to see. I think it was. I'm kind of going off of. Let's see here. What was it here? Yeah, that was 40 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
That was still 40 seconds. So almost 748 frames.
This is edited too?
Not as much. This is a little edited. Not as much edited, but you still see the sky's a little blown out on the left. But again, you've got double issues of long exposure, high dynamic range with the sun being like almost, I don't want to say my face, but pretty close. So, not necessarily, but again, I'm really happy how it turned out. And the fact that now the app in the US was $4.99. I think it's still $4.99. I don't know because I got it I don't know if they had a deal for Black Friday. That's something I can double check here when you're going over your photos too. But for, and of course we all think, oh, $5 for an app, that's so expensive. And like, do you see what the app does here? That's pretty, that's trying to, your other option, if you wanted to do this with a, outside of a smartphone, is take a whole bunch of photos, stack them up in a separate program just for stacking, import them into Photoshop. Okay, spend a year and a half learning Photoshop, then import it into Photoshop, and then use whatever algorithms they have. $5 is not that bad. $5 is not that bad.
Or you could buy the, $2,000 minimum, $2,000 really good DSLR with the lens and the filters and all that stuff, and then do it that way. But I mean,
actually, I must have gotten it when it was on sale. I see it's now $7.99.
Okay.
So,
but you know what? Still worth it, because Mario Tomiak, who is the developer of this app, David Addison had him on his latest episode of the David Addison Show, and we're going to link to that too, because it's a really, really good interview. And Mario does this in the evenings and on weekends. This is not his day job, developing this app, and it was 3 years in the making. So that's all I'm going to say. I want you to go and listen to that episode, or watch it on YouTube.
David had a great interview there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's peanuts compared to, the work that Mario's put into it. So, now I paid for the upgrade to be able to do RAW. So this is a RAW image. And, this is one of the things with RAW is, there's no detail in the sky up here. It's blown out, as you can see at the top of the frame. So this is, for those who are listening, this is a picture of a waterfall that I went to about a month ago or so, and took a lot of pictures of it with even longer, and I used slow shutter cam, and I might have even tried Spectre on it. I'm not sure, but it was just a day of long exposure stuff for me. And, middle of the day, overcast. So there's nice even lighting on everything else around the waterfall. But now this one here, excuse me, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I could find it quick enough to give the details on it, but I suspect it was probably, at least, 10 to 15 seconds. So there wasn't a lot of breeze, which was a good thing, because, there's some spruce trees in the foreground, and there's very little movement in the twigs and stuff there. So, but I mean, it's just a nice, smooth, veiling effect of the water. And, I just love the app. One of the first times I've ever taken a picture with even longer, I think, is this one here. This was down at the bay near where I live here, and I used the ultra wide, and this was about 2 minutes and almost 2.5 minutes. It was really, really windy, and as you can see, there's a lot of cloud movement. And I was facing right into the wind, so that the clouds were going to go, basically, the focal point of the clouds is bottom center, right above the horizon line, and they kind of just go up in all directions as they're going past me. And there's even a little bit of blue sky, because there was a bit of an opening in the sky there, in the clouds, letting the sky show through. But other than that, it's just water. A bit of land right across the frame, a couple of buildings, and just these clouds, and they're moving very quickly. And so about 2.5 minutes worth of that. This one here is basically down in the same spot at a different time, though, around sunset. And I wanted to, so it's looking across the bay. You can see some rocks in the foreground. The other side of the of the city where I live. It goes around this bay, and it's right around sunset. So there's a little bit of color in the sky, and I was kind of disappointed. I was hoping for more color, um, just to be blended in with the movement of the clouds. And then this one here, I'm not sure how long it was, but I'm probably going to say it was around 3 minutes or so. Maybe 3 to 5 minutes, I forget, but it was a little longer than the other ones. Um, and now this last one I'm going to show, this one here, this is okay. So we took steel wool. We went to a local beach, and we took steel wool, and you put it in the like a whisk, like an egg beater type of whisk thing or whatever, and then you have it connected to a chain, and then you light the steel wool with a lighter, and it starts sparking. And then as you swing this thing around, sparks fly off the steel wool, and it just goes flying everywhere. I believe the craft is called sparkle poi. Some people just call it, steel wool or whatever. But we had a lot of fun with this. And now this type of shot, so Even Longer has 3 modes. It has frame averaging, which is, what Dave and I have been talking about up to this point. Then it has star trails, and it has light trails. So for this particular shot, I put it on light trails, and there isn't a mobile photography app out there that can capture these streaks of light like this as smoothly as Even Longer can. It's I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it's taking so many frames so quickly and then blending them together, that it's like, if this was done with slow shutter cam or Camera Plus or any of these other apps that have a long exposure feature in it, these little streaks where the sparks flew, it's kind of like a welder, and the sparks are flying off a welding thing. And if you take a long exposure of it, you'll see the sparks leaving these nice light trails. That's exactly what this looks like. But with any other app, these streaks of light, these little light trails, would have been broken up into little dashes. Excuse me. They'd be like Morse code. It'd be just dashes. They wouldn't be so smooth. So Mario has done such a good job at getting this app to do this, that this looks like a lot like a DSLR version of this type of activity that I did many years ago. The lights, the sparks are so smooth and everything else. So it's obviously at night. You can barely see lights across the bay in the background there, but other than that, all you see is the person who is swinging this thing around, and then the sparks hitting the sand on the beach, and they're nice and vibrant and orange and everything else. And that's just another one of these things that's possible with Even Longer, and in my opinion, not possible with any other app available on the iPhone or on Android that can do this type of thing. It just won't do it this well. So, my hat's off to Mario Tomiak for creating this in his spare time. And he's got some cool things coming up. He talks about a couple of things on the podcast with David Addison. And I'm just so that this is my go-to long exposure app now. That's all I could say. It used to be Slow Shutter and Spectre. They have their purposes, but this one here, and this was a raw file too. So I was able to adjust the color temperature and everything else of the light trails to get them the color I wanted. And it's just incredible, just an incredible app to work with. So that's our experience with Even Longer. And I'd say go get it. We'll put a link to the app in the show notes too. And Mario has an account on Instagram, and he has an even longer account on Instagram, and you can see that he shares a lot of other people's photos if they hashtag it with even longer, or even longer app. He usually shares them in his stories all the time, and it's just incredible what people are doing with this. And David Addison also has a great review of even longer on his own YouTube channel, not on the podcast network, but on his own YouTube channel. We'll have a link to that as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So, well, that. Oh, it looks like you're going to try to say something.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was muted now. For the pro membership, I'm seeing two costs, just so people have a feeling for how much it is. I just checked in the app. Now, like I said, I may have been I don't think introductory, because this thing's been out for like 6 months. But I may have been in like a special Black Friday sale, whatever. Because I have a 99 cents 1 month, $6.99 1 year, $18.99 one-time purchase. But the Apple App Store website, it's $149 for a month, $9.99 for a year, and $29.99 for a one-time purchase.
Interesting.
So honestly, I would say if you're not sure if you want the Pro, go for the 1 month at $149. Because that isn't that much of a that's not going to, or if it's if you can get it for 99, and then if you really like it, I wouldn't say go. I don't know if I would go for the one-time purchase of $30 per se, but
I did that.
I would say I know, but I would say go for the year, because the year still isn't that bad though. Even at $10, if you average it, and now admittedly you can't average it out because he's going to charge all at once, but the 1 year still, that way you can also see, like, it may be that you use it. I can see this being used, let's say, in the winter months a lot, especially if you're doing a lot of light trail work, versus versus the summer, where if it doesn't get dark until 9 p.m. and it gets light at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, there's a good chance you're not going to use it for light trails. You're not going to see any light trails.
yeah, unless you're a night owl.
Exactly. So, and probably no one's out to do light trails with, unless you're going to do like the painting, like you did with the steel wool. So
no, and I mean, for star trails too. I mean, there's your nighttime activity for sure. Yeah. And you can do exposures with this app for hours and hours, and it does not heat up the phone.
No.
I think David Addison tried one. I forget how long he went with it, but he tried it with the Moment app, I think it was. Okay. And his phone heated up immediately.
Oh yeah.
He did it with even longer, and it wasn't even running.
The limit that is built into the app, I don't think it's a limitation. It's a limitation Mario put on. It wasn't a limitation of what it could do. Is 10 hours.
Yeah.
Now that's honestly, if you're going to do a 10-hour shot, get a battery pack, because there's or two. Because even with like the iPhone Max, you can get 10 plus hours of battery life. But if you're doing this with the computation behind everything else, you're going to be running out of steam.
Yeah.
Not long after 10 hours.
Yeah. So just a couple of quick things I'll mention about even longer before we tie it off here is that you can save incremental exposures. Like, okay, let's just say
with the Pro.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just to mention that to people, that's a Pro feature also.
Right. Okay. You can, let's say you do a 10-minute exposure. You could save one at 2 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm not sure what the exact time frames are here, but you could save them in increments of like every couple of minutes or so. So you can, for cloud movement, you can have a little bit and then a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more to get to and then you get to the final image of the movement of the clouds. So there's that. You can do with the pro version, you can do bracketing. So you can do, say, let's just say a 2 minute exposure of clouds moving, but you can also have it bracketed, like one stop under, perfect exposure, one stop over. And so there's that. And then also the fact that you can save these all in DNG, in RAW, and which is, excuse me, which is really incredible for this type of long exposure thing. It's never been able to be done with an iPhone before. Lightroom Mobile can save a long exposure DNG, but I think it's limited to like a couple of minutes, or
Okay.
I'm not sure what the limit is for it, the maximum. But with even longer, you could do one of these 10-hour things with a DNG file, and it's pretty impressive. So I would say that's probably it for even longer for now. But again, go to David's channel and look at his review of even longer, and he can show you all the different things that it has to offer. Probably explain it a lot better than we could. So, yeah. So, well, I guess Dave, that's a good show.
Oh yeah.
Tell everybody where they could find you.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Prof Pod, and on Facebook as Dave Podner Jr.
Alrighty. And you can find me on Instagram, Macmillan Photo, on Twitter, Macmillan_photo. And all the other links are for wherever I am. You can find them at about.me/Macmillan. And, we do the show every couple of weeks, and, unless life gets in the way. But, I wanted to mention too, that Shane Mostyn, legend that he is, he is going to have on December the 18th on his YouTube channel a live show. He's going to have, I believe it's David Addison, Mike James, a couple more guys. I can't remember the names offhand. I should have had this ready, but it just dawned on me now. But and then yours truly, I will be on there as well. Now, you might not want to miss this one because he's giving away a phone.
Oh, okay. I saw him promoting that, so that's when it's going to happen. Okay.
Yes, it's on the 18th of December. I'm not sure what time it is. If you go to, let's see, I'm not sure if it's on his YouTube channel. Sometimes you put those little static images on to say something's coming up. He may not have it on there yet, but he's going to be doing a live again on this Friday. So it's usually around 2 or 3 o'clock Eastern time. So he'll probably talk about it again there. But go to his channel, even look at his last live video. I'm pretty sure he talks about it there, but it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a lot of fun. Usually the live shows start off normal, let's just say, and then they just kind of go crazy. So they are a lot of fun. And so go on the 18th. You don't want to miss that, because anybody that's a member, or like that supports his channel with a membership or whatever, they're already going to be in the draw, I believe. And then if you want to be in the draw, you have to be watching live and in the chat on YouTube or Facebook, I guess, too. So if you want to win one of these phones that he's got some darn nice ones. He's got, I don't know which ones he's got up for grabs. Obviously not his 13 Pro Max, but he's got like a Huawei. He's got a Samsung. I'm not sure which one he's given away, and I'm not sure how many he's got. But yeah, look for that. There'll be a link somewhere around here for his channel. You can go and check him out. So I wanted to get that out there because I forgot to mention it on the last show, and I wanted to, but I forgot. But anyway, so yeah, you can catch the show every 2 weeks. Get the audio on the podcast app of choice. I think the most popular one is Apple Podcasts, but it's also on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor. It's hosted on Anchor. And where else? Well, I get it on Pocket Casts, Overcast. So just about any podcast app you use, you can get the show. And don't forget to check out the MeWe group, the Artful iPhoneography community. That's basically where this all started. And that's at artfulipc.club. Podcast is at iPhoneography.ca. And let's see what else. Well, I guess I'll just cap it off with a new little catchphrase that I came up with when I finished writing my book. It's done. I'm just waiting to hear from the publisher now. I think one of the very last things I say in the book is take your shot, create your art, and tell your story. So take, create, and tell. And I'm going to, if I remember, I'm going to try to finish every show with that. That'll be my new line. But yeah, and for audio listeners, go to YouTube and look for the iPhoneography Podcast Network, and that's where you'll see all these shows. Sometimes it's better to watch the visual, but we're putting out enhanced podcasts now. So if there's something we're talking about that is a photo or something like that, we'll have it. You can look on your podcast app on the screen, and you'll be able to see the picture. So that's something that I've been doing now for the last 2 or 3 episodes, and it seems to work pretty good. So anyway, all right, Dave, thanks a million, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Have a great week, everyone.